Hey everybody, as the title suggests, smart TV manufacturers are not going to be happy with this post. But as you know, smart TV is basically like a giant cell phone, right? It's a display with a uh, computer attached to it that allows it to run apps. Now, I've got a Fire TV that I picked up on sale, I believe in 2018, so it's probably 2017, so it's about 8 years old at this point. It runs out of space. I have a media server. If you haven't seen that or listened to that audio, I have a Jellyfin server that has over 400 movies on it that I put together, and it serves up those movies and a whole bunch of television shows. So I wanted to put it on the TV. The Jellyfin app works great on the TV, and the TV's been working well, except for a few glitches here and there. Sometimes certain things like Paramount app on the TV would not play quite as well as the web interface app that I have on my computer. Things like that. And I noticed that I was having issues when I was using a Blu-ray movie. It would stutter. And by stutter, I mean it would stop and then start again, and then stop and then start again. As opposed to, like little glitches that you might see in a video where it seems to be a little bit glitchy as it goes through. But these would actually look like it stop and then start again. And we know the secret to every streaming app is how much can it cache? How far ahead is it set so that it can play out? So I believe what's happening with the TV is it's just old enough that and I've got enough apps on it, that it doesn't have enough space to really handle caching. Now I have an external USB flash drive attached to it, which is supposed to help with that. But honestly, I don't really see it working quite the same way that it should. It's not usually using that to its full potential. Now, part of that is probably the Fire TV application. Now, again, as we know, cell phones like to have a planned obsolescence, and their operating systems usually help that along a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that's going on with the TV, but it wouldn't surprise me. So what do you do when you've got a television set that's 8 years old and you're starting to have issues with it? The manufacturers would love for you to go buy a new TV. Now, taking aside the fact that that's extra money, what happens to the old TV, right? It gets thrown in the trash. Does it really get taken apart and recycled? Probably not. So it's grossly wasteful to do that, just like it was years ago when you could buy an inkjet printer, and the inkjet came with a full set of tanks, so you had a full load of ink. However, it was cheaper to buy a new printer than it was to buy the inks for your existing printer, which created a huge issue with waste and all this electronic waste that was being created that needed to be handled. So I got a 55-inch TV, but I don't want to hook a computer up to it. I could, and I have. I have 3 HDMI ports on the TV, so there's a lot of things I could run off of it. Again, the issue that we're going to have is the TV still has to work. The app still has to work for me to select, at least with the Fire TV, that HDMI port. But putting that aside for right now. So the TV's got its own connection to the internet, both Wi-Fi and cabled. But by buying a mini PC, now if you haven't seen them, the one I've got is about 5 by 5 inches and about 2.5 inches thick. So it's really small. It doesn't have any of its own cooling, really. It's a fanless cooling system. So you have to be careful about where you position it. but it would take up very little space near the TV. And if you've got a television set and you've got one of those nice sound bars or something like that on it, this is probably going to take up less space than your sound bar is taking up. And I found one. It's a general purpose one, so it's not a really high-end one. It was about $100 refurbished. Now, refurbished means that the device is not going in the trash somewhere, right? So it's not more electronic waste. My television's not going to be electronic waste. Putting those two together allows me to run the apps on the little computer as opposed to running it on the TV. Difference between the two. Well, the computer's running Windows in 12 gigabytes of RAM that it's got. It's got a 256 gig SSD on it. Plenty of space. And I used a very, very old laptop, a Dell 5450. If anybody remembers those, they came out in 2015. Yeah, this is an old junker that I had kicking around. That had come from work that I was trying to refurb, and it's not going to happen. So I tested that out, and it ran the video from Jellyfin just fine. So I knew this process was going to work. Now this has a little Intel N100. It's more of a general purpose box. So if you're going to do this yourself, you want to make sure that the graphics that it has is going to support whatever graphics your computer has. And you can find that out pretty easily. If you can't get it from the specs itself, hook a computer up to it if it's got an HDMI port on it. And when your computer recognizes it, check what it thinks that the resolution should be on it. So hooked it up, and my Blu-ray works perfectly. Everything works on it just great. I can move my Netflix app over. I can move my Apple TV app over to it. All of that stuff can now work off of the computer, and I don't have to worry about those apps being compatible with whatever OS version of the Fire TV that I happen to have. And at a certain point, that's probably going to stop being updatable. So this will give me some future proofing. Is it perfect? No. The TV will eventually fail. Now, as I said, it's 8 years old. It got a good amount of use for the first, I'd say, 2 to 3 months of its life. It was on quite a bit, and then it was off, and it was put away for a couple of years. It was my partner's TV, and she used it to help herself sleep at night just by leaving the TV on. The noise and the light helped her sleep. When she passed, I inherited the TV, and it sat unused for a couple of years. It's only been up now for about 2 or 3 years. So it had all the updates and things I had to do, obviously, on it. But again, it's like 8 years old. It's going to not update it at a certain point, or I'm going to have issues with the apps that are on it, or something's going to come along that way. The television itself works perfectly well as a monitor. So as long as that core operating system works, allowing me to switch over to an HDMI, I can run the mini PC through that, use it as a monitor, and I've got something that's more future-proofed, right? The mini PC, again, is a refurb. It's a 2025 box, so it's a new box that's refurbed. The operating system on it, though, was older. It was still running 22H2 of Windows 11, which, if you're not familiar with that went off the supported list in October of 2024. So I've got I updated the operating system. That went through perfectly well. Everything's been working great on it. Got it through eBay. But again, you can buy a newer version of it and a new version of it off of like Amazon, or a lot of the computer companies like Newegg have these mini PCs. They don't take up a lot of space. They're quiet because they have no fans on them. And you could stash it behind your mounted television set. If you've got a big TV and it's mounted, you could probably mount this sucker to the wall right behind it and not even know that it's there. But again, it's basically a component smart TV, which personally, I think if the smart TV manufacturers were smart about it, they would make it as a removable component. So you would have a swap out unit in the back that is your mini PC, and that would not only allow you to use the working monitor for much longer than you're probably going to get at it by having the app, the CPU that's in it, be obsolete. But it would give them another revenue stream, because a lot of people are not going to go buy a new TV. I mean, if you paid $600 or $700 for a big screen TV, you're not going to want to shell that out every year. But if your module in the back needs to be swapped out every, let's say, 3 to 5 years, and all you have to do is go back to that manufacturer and they've got another module, and you pop that yours out and you pop theirs in, and it only costs you a couple $100. Well, hey, if you're doing that every 5 years and your television set lasts you at least 10, right? So you paid, let's say, $600 for it originally. You throw another couple hundred into it for a module swap. So for $800, you've got a machine for 10 years. That's a pretty good deal. It's $80 a year that you're paying for your TV. So that works out pretty well. Now, that's not taking into account the fact that the newer ones have less electrical use and things like that. But again, the failure point on these guys is going to be the smart TV itself. That application that's running in the background, that operating system that handles the television and handles all the apps, that's where your failure point's going to be. That's what's going to become obsolete. You look at a phone, they can last for a good amount of time. However, how often do you realize that your phone's not working quite as well, or that it is having trouble charging? Mine says it's overheated half the time now. Or that you just have a problem with an app on it or something like that. They're designed not to last forever. And considering the size of the technology that they're using and the heat that can warp them, that makes sense. So having something a little bit more mini PC size, so it's not attached to the television, is also going to extend its life. But again, this is something that the manufacturers could have, and in my opinion, should have taken care of. Just like I think they should have had a dockable spot for smart bars, right? Those speakers that you've got that give you better sound. If you bought a TV and you had a way to dock it, that would give you a quick way to just want to pop one in, right? And a reason to pop one of those in. Well, if your TV is upgradable and that you can pull out this module that's running all your apps and things like that, back it up to the other unit, either by a USB stick or something that you plug into it. It does a backup routine. You pop the new one in, pop that stick in, and you're right back where you were with better hardware and newer technology. I think that would make a better deal. That said, you can do it yourself, right? If your big screen TV has HDMI in on it, which a lot of them do, plug it in and go. Now, your sound can run through the TV just like it does now, right? The HDMI cable is going to carry both your audio and video signals. So just having that HDMI cable, everything works. My setup, I have a small pair of speakers. I do not have a big sound bar setup, but I've got my pair of speakers that are plugged in. They can run off of both the optical feed from my TV or the normal audio jack that's on there. The TV itself was a 55-inch Fire TV. And I've got my little unit hooked up. My little mini PC just USB cabled to the TV. That's taking care of everything for me. Now, the other thing you get that's an advantage doing it this way is the fact that if you need to type in something in a search or something on the TV itself, right, you need to have a keyboard for that. Well, now that you've got the PC, you're doing your searches on the PC, not on the TV itself. They make, and I'll let you guys know next week how well it works because it's showing up on Monday, but they make a Bluetoothed keyboard that has a trackpad on it. So that's going to allow me to have a pointer and keyboard all in one unit that isn't connected by cable to anything. Right now I've got a mouse and a keyboard cabled to my mini PC. This will allow me to take those cables away, which lets me put the mini PC just about anywhere. As long as the TV, if I mount it behind the TV, doesn't interfere with the Bluetooth signal, I'm fine. It can go anywhere over there. So I don't have to leave it where it is. Now, currently, it's sitting on a desk with a good-sized laptop cooling tray underneath it. One of those stands that allows you to tip the laptop. It has a couple of fans on it to help keep the laptop cool. That's how I've got this set up, which overall I don't think is a bad idea because it'll help keep the mini PC a little cooler. But I don't know that I could find something that would work the same to mount it to the wall. For those of you who build computers and want to get a feel for what the size this is, a normal case fan, right, the 120 millimeter case fans, if you were to put two of those case fans, one on top of the other, with the outside frames and everything, that's going to be about the size of this mini PC. They are really, really, really small. They're not expandable, right? So what you want to get is something you think you're going to be able to use for the next X years. Again, if you're swapping these things every 3 years, then, for $100 or $300, you're paying $100 a year for this extra piece that can possibly be used for something else or resold when you decide you've had enough of this one. Copy your information from the old mini PC to the new mini PC, hook it up to your TV, and you're ready to go. And then you can sell the old mini PC. Strip it down, erase it, and sell it out to the next person who wants a mini PC. So, and it might be somebody who's got a TV and just looking for a cheap mini PC to have for a couple of years. So it helps us cut down on any electronic waste, especially something as large as a television set, right? These things are not small. A 55-inch is a good-sized beast. Forgetting about the weight of it to haul the thing around, etc., it is still a lot of electronics in there that need to be disposed of. And depending on where you are, they might be disposed of in a good way, or it might just be thrown in the trash. And taking out even the electronics, if you were to take that out of it, you've still got the frame and everything else, all those plastics that probably are not being recycled, that are just being trashed. So this helps us get extra life out of it. It also means if you happen to be going to a Goodwill or something like that where they might have traded in an old TV, you won't care. As long as it still works as a monitor, you can make a newer TV out of it. You can make something that's better technology out of it just by adding a mini PC to it. So it opens up a lot more options to you about what you can use for a TV, where you can get the TV, how long you can keep the TV. And let's face it, we all need to save money as best we can right now. And by just being able to buy a $100 mini PC that I'm able to connect up to, I think this ran me $650 when it was on sale. I could be wrong. $650 to $750, somewhere in there at Best Buy. Being able to run the TV off of that mini PC means that TV can now last me for another 3 to 5 years. So to me, throwing $100 in there is a lot better than replacing the TV and getting one of those more expensive ones. Also means I can extend out the life of the television set. I do not watch TV. I will be honest, that much. I do watch a movie once a day, sometimes twice. So you're talking about maybe 20 hours a week of screen time with me using the TV. And that's in an average. Sometimes I'll binge watch something off of Netflix or something along that lines, but that's about all I use the TV for. So by having the TV set up this way, I will probably get a good amount of life out of it. And that's really what I want. I just wanted to extend the TV with a cost-effective way to do it. So about $100, let's say $150 for a used mini PC or refurbed mini PC. It's going to cost me about $30 for the keyboard. So I'm under $200 against buying a new 55-inch TV, which with the tariffs and everything is going to be a lot more money. And I have a smart TV. And let's be honest, it's very hard to not find a smart TV now. It's not the old way where you just had a TV and you just plug into it. Now they all have applications to them. They need to have networking. So this takes away a lot of the issues that I had there. Now, I could disconnect the TV right from the network. It doesn't have to be on Wi-Fi. It doesn't have to be cabled in anymore. All the apps and everything are going to run from my mini PC. So I don't need the TV to do any of that lifting anymore. It doesn't need to do any of the networking stuff anymore. I'm going to leave it hooked up because that's how it's going to get updates and things. But if the time comes where I'm worried about the updates or it's just not going to get them anymore, then there's really no reason for me to keep that TV cabled up. I can just disconnect it. And with the server in the house, that also means that streaming is all internal. I don't have to worry about things streaming outside, even though because I share my movies with a friend of mine, I want to make sure that that's accessible on the outside, so I run it that way. I don't have to. It's all internal. If you've got your own server inside, you're just going from the speed of the mini PC's connection to your server's connection, and it just streams it to the TV. So it gives you a way of extending all of the life of your hardware and all the stuff that you've paid for, at the same time keeping you from having to throw things out and deal with old electronics that have to be recycled. So again, I'm not sure that the smart TV manufacturers are going to be particularly thrilled with this, but it's their own fault, because if they came up with a process of being able to swap those intelligent modules in and out of the TVs, then they could extend their TVs and they could build a better TV, right? So maybe the TV costs you more money. So your $600 TV now costs you $800. But that $800 means that TV is going to last you for another, double the life expectancy of the TV, because these modules just pop in and out, and the TV itself is going to be fine. Especially these LED TVs, they can last for a good amount of time. So that's what I got for you guys this week. A little bit of cost savings. I think we all need that this year. And something simple to extend the life of your TV. Just make sure that whatever refurb you get comes from a reputable refurberation company, and check out your graphics that are on that box just to make sure that it's going to run the screen. Mine is over 3,500 in one direction, so keep that in mind when you're putting these together. You don't want to make something that is you don't want to get something that can't match that resolution. That's then going to mean that your stuff looks pixelated. Because that's the last thing you want to do, is to make your video look worse having better technology attached to it. But that's what I got for you this week, and I'll talk to you all next week.